JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur inside the Gamecocks. JC, what's going on, my friend? How you doing?
Oh, great to be with you, Chris. Certainly always look forward to Thursdays and our chats here on the Spurs Up Show on the Daily Crow. I got to get that right. I've called it like the Crow line, and my bad on that. But it's the Daily Crow. Always glad to be with you, man.
Yeah, man. JC, it's always a pleasure. And I want to say thank you first to you and Phil having me on Inside the Gamecocks this morning. The chat was incredible. And, hey, man, let's jump right into it. Obviously, this past weekend, incredible. That Texas A&M game, getting that win, getting that Aggie-sized monkey off your back, if you will. Gamecocks, finally. We don't have to talk about the streak anymore, JC. South Carolina gets the win. 5-2 now, and so many firsts and so many different things, positive statistics favoring Carolina. You've won four in a row for the first time since 2013. Now ranked in the top 25 for the first time since September 2018. You get your first win over the Aggies, and you started in style with the Xavier Legette kickoff return for a touchdown, then the pick, then the Tonka play. Before you could even blink, you're up 17-0. How about that start from Carolina? We talked a lot about, which team's going to come out of the gate. Both teams start slow. I think the Gamecocks took that personally, JC, because you really could not have asked for a better start in that football game.
No doubt. And what makes it even, more special to me as a native of South Carolina, all three kids that you just mentioned are South Carolina kids. Xavier Legette is from, Mullins,
Yeah,
one of those.
Yeah.
I knew it was in the PD. And then, of course, Darius Rush is from down near Carver's Bay-ish, or he was at the it's in Greeleyville. I know that. And then, of course, Tonka's from Conway. So really happy for those kids. And sometimes when you start like that, Chris, Steve Spurrier used to talk about it. When you return the opening kickoff for a touchdown, sometimes bad things end up happening. Because you just start real quick. It's like, And I remember twice specifically, two games involving the Florida Gators. The championship game against Ohio State. You remember Ted Ginn for OSU. They were heavy favorites. Urban Meyer's first championship in 2006. Returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Final was 41-14 Gators. Then in the Swamp in 2010 against Carolina, Andre DeBose for Florida returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Final score 36-14 Gamecocks. What's cool about what's happening at Carolina now is that this is the third straight game in this program's history where they've returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown and won. Debo did it against NC State in 17. He did it against Ole Miss in 18. Both those were wins. They were away from home, but they were wins. And then Xavier does it the other night. The Gamecocks win. So that's, I think, kind of a reverse trend there. The Gamecocks do well when they get off to that kind of start. And certainly, just from the standpoint of Xavier Legette probably has not gotten the targets and catches he expected coming in. I think we all kind of expected more numbers out of the receiving core, the passing game as a whole. But the kid just goes out and plays ball, plays his butt off, Okay, you want me to return kicks? Fine, I'll do it. You want me to go make a tackle on special teams? I'll do it. Yeah, he's a big athletic kid to start with. And I think that just epitomizes what Shane Beamer has done with this program as far as developing a sense of togetherness and teams that are together, no matter what the struggles are, no matter what the offensive play calling does, no matter you have a turnover or whatever, they tend to be resilient and they tend to win a whole lot more than they lose. And that was on display Saturday night. And look, I've been critical of the offense all week and all year and for 20 games, man. I mean, just be honest.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it was the players and the team. When Carolina's sitting there needing a touchdown, they go on a drive and score. Later on, Aggies cut it 24-21. The Gamecocks go on another drive and score. That's how you win games. And people, I think, get caught up sometimes in the style points and stuff like that. And they forget, heck, when Carolina beat Alabama in 2010, right? That game, of course, it was a, much more highly touted opponent and all that good stuff. But that game kind of flowed like the A&M game. You had the big start for the Gamecocks, 21-3, first quarter. Later in the game, you had the Garcia safety, which, by the way, was the right play by Steven. A lot of people think he just lost it and did it. That was the right call. Yeah. And so it's 21-14. Okay, so you need a drive. So they start riding Marcus Lattimore. Steven starts completing passes over the middle on third down. Brian Maddox has a big run. So the 28-14. Well, Bama responds, 28-21. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to go right back down the field. Marcus is in the end zone touchdown. At that point, you knew you were going to win the game. This team this year did that against A&M. Every time the Aggies got back in it and it looked like they were going to snatch momentum, the defense made big plays. They played resilient. They just were not going to be denied. I think that unit played very inspired football Saturday night. And then the offense, as up and down as it was, came through when they needed it. And I think that's very, very important when you're talking about, if they get into the weeds a little bit this weekend, oh, well, we've been here before. We can be resilient. We can come back. We were a second half team, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think all those things were immensely positive beyond beating A&M. And you mentioned the streak. Okay, so now South Carolina's beaten every team in the SEC at least once. And Texas and OU are coming in. They've never played Oklahoma. Hopefully they don't start another streak against Oklahoma. We'll see how the schedule goes out. But they did beat Texas in 1957, the only time they've played them in Austin. King Dixon, who used to be the athletic director of Carolina, I think returned a kickoff for like 100 yards, and Carolina won like 7-0 or something like that. But so 15 of 16 now the Gamecocks have beaten, and certainly was good to beat A&M. Given like the immense hype surrounding their program and stuff. I kind of think it's positive when you can beat a team, no matter how much they're down, when they're super hyped, because obviously it causes a lot of discussion nationally and your program gets exposure. So I think all those things were positive about Saturday.
JC, am I crazy for feeling a bit of a sense of optimism about the offense going into this weekend? Because, I was at the game and I was as frustrated as anybody sitting there in the stadium. And, there are many times where we've been frustrated watching this offense. I used the term sputter a couple of weeks ago to describe it. It fit that billing for a lot of that ball game. But I really feel like, obviously, Marshawn Lloyd gives you a lot of reason to be excited. The offensive line continues to improve week to week, which I think that's a huge matchup in this game. I think Missouri, obviously, you look up front with Jeff Coat, McGuire, and those other guys, and their linebacking core. They're solid defensively, all right? They're stingy. They're very stingy. They're good. They're good on defense. But I thought Spencer Rattler had, I think, if not for a couple of drops, I think the narrative this week is much different about the way he played. I loved seeing him on the run, making throws on the run, showing off the accuracy, the arm strength, if you will. He made a couple throws in that game on Saturday that I looked at and said, this is why you wanted him, and there's only a handful of guys in college football that can put that ball where he put it on the money like that. I don't know if it's going to be this week or Vandy or what have you. I'm not trying to have the garnet glasses, obviously, but I've just got this gut feeling of, for whatever reason, I feel better than I felt about the offense this time last week. And I feel like maybe, and certainly the factor of, my concerns regarding Marcus Satterfield and his feel of the flow of the game and his instinct or lack thereof, what have you. But in regards to the players and the playmakers making plays, which is what it all comes down to, players making plays, I feel like this is a team that is at least getting closer. And I don't want to sound like coach speak. I don't want to sound like, again, Chris is trying to paint a garnet and black picture, but like, I have to feel like at some point, because Marshawn Lloyd's going to keep doing his thing. Like at some point, those deep passes, those big plays, they're going to connect at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen this week or next week, but give me your thoughts on the offense, what you saw, and do you share that sense of optimism? I know you mentioned earlier this morning a cautious optimism. Just your overall thoughts on the offense coming out of A&M.
I know. Yeah, I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, do you know why you're optimistic? Is because Carolina's got good players. They got. You got Stogner. What I thought he had a really good game. I mean, He was interfered with on one of those catches badly. And still called it, man, and flexed. I like to see him get excited because
SEC refs were very on brand Saturday night. We'll put it that way. I don't know why they felt like it was pick on Cam Smith night, but they did.
Cam Smith that was criminal. I mean, he didn't even. You can touch the guy, you can't interfere with the guy. You can touch him. So anyway, that was a. But you look at a guy like Stocker. You look at Jaheim Bell, who actually. Even though he's got limited snaps and nobody's happy about that, he called a key third down in 11 and went for 15 yards, broke a couple tackles, went up there. He made a big play. Juice made that big catch, which was a wow throw. I thought over there on the sideline where he jumped up. They've run that a lot, and Juice is really good at catching that. And we know what he can do because we saw him against Arkansas and Kentucky light it up. I don't know what it is about home games where they want to throw in the ball, but that's interesting. But Van caught some passes. Jalen Brooks, I felt bad for because that ball in the end zone, he's come down with that all year. Those types of plays. Jalen is not dropped a pass, that I can remember all season. And then he had, one or two the other nights I felt bad for him. But, he made a big play on the reverse. Yeah. That's one of the –
and I'll say this to your point about Jalen, sure. JC, because I know it's – and listen, I agree. It's the SEC. You got to catch it, right? He'd tell you he has to catch it. I was in that end zone. The force with which he hit the ground with –
oh, God.
It was not like he was just in stride and just hit him in the chest and he dropped it. So I will say, to Jalen's credit, that would have been an outstanding catch. I've just put it out there. Anyway.
And I'll say this, I played football back in the day. When you hit the ground like that, and what's worse is when you fall on the ball, you feel like you're going to die for about 10 seconds. And then you got to snap out of it. But you hit the ground like that, it knocks the wind out of you. And it's tough. It's tough. I mean, you could sometimes you black out. I mean, it was tough, but I felt bad for him. I think he'll rebound. I mean, I think we'll see the same Jalen Brooks we've seen all year moving forward. But he's pretty good. He got good players, and you're right. At some point they're going to connect on a deep ball to Amari and Brown. That's you look at what he did at Georgia Tech, and it was unfortunate against Arkansas that they couldn't quite link up. But that's his game. He's a Damiere Byrd type of receiver. That if you want a comparison, I don't know if he'll play in the NFL for however long Damier's played in the NFL, but I think he is that type of guy. You get him on go routes, he's open, he's so fast, boom, touchdown. So I think we will see it, Chris, and I share your optimism when it does come to the fact that they have good players, and I think good players make plays, and Spencer is close. You can feel it, and you and I aren't the only ones that feel this way either. A lot of folks I talk to around the program that cover the program, they're like, it's just a matter of time before he really has a huge game. And that's good because these last, 5 games of the season are obviously extremely important, every single one of them.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I think about it too. I'm like, you look at Spencer Rattler's season, and I understand it's been underwhelming to this point, but I'm like, at some point, he's going to have a game that he shows you who he is. And like, what I'm saying? His talent, you can't suppress talent forever. Like, it's going to shine at some point. Let's talk, JC, the defensive side of the football, because I really thought they were the unsung heroes of the game. And while I understand that, I think this fan base has got a great sense of envy watching the Tennessees of the world, them just scoring 50 a game. And I get it. I get it.
Right? All of college football probably.
Right. All of college football does. And we all want it to be flashy and sexy and what have you. But the bottom line is this: the Gamecocks are finding a way to win. And a lot of it comes down to, especially the last 2 weeks, the defensive side. And you talked about it this morning, the defensive line, the way they're flying around, just taking over games. And that was the case yet again on Saturday night, just what you saw from them. And again, it's just more encouraging signs. And then at all 3 levels, man, I saw Sherrod Green all over the place. I saw Debo Williams making plays. Stone Blanton, I feel like, is becoming more and more involved on a weekly basis. And then the secondary, it just speaks for itself what they're doing, man. I think Darius Rush is making his case for, he's like, y'all love Cam Smith so much. There's no knock on Cam, but he's like, y'all love Cam Smith so much. Well, what about me? Look at what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So the defense as a whole, but would love to hear you expand again. I know you're really high on that defensive line and what they did for a second consecutive week in SEC play.
Yeah, and you want to match up for the Missouri game. This is the 3rd straight offensive line that the Gamecocks have faced. It's really got a lot of issues. Really they don't protect well, all that good stuff. But I thought the defensive line controlled the line of scrimmage for South Carolina. The defense wasn't perfect. The Aggies, again, players, they got a lot of good players. They're going to make some plays. Haynes King looked rattled from the time he got out there till the time he was benched. I thought the freshman that they put in, Wegman, was just a little bit better, but he's a true freshman in his first game. Wow, what an environment to shove him into, right? And he's just out there playing. Whenever you put a freshman quarterback in, you scaled everything back. You're running like 4 different plays that he can run and telling him just to make one read and take off. But South Carolina's D-line for the last 2 weeks has looked like, Chris, I think what we all expected when guys like Pickens and Birch were recruited, and Hemingway and Boogie Huntley, when we brought these defensive linemen into the program. you think, because that was kind of during the Spurrier era, how good was South Carolina's defensive front? It was elite, right? And it kind of reminds you of those defensive performances back then, good secondary, good defensive line, and really getting improved linebacker play too. I thought Brad Johnson actually played his best game on Saturday night. So I think that's promising. And you mentioned Stone Blanton. I'm going to tell you this right now. Stone Blanton is going to be an outstanding football player at the University of South Carolina when all is said and done. People will remember his name as long as he can stay healthy, keep developing, that kind of thing. I think he's, you talked about just getting the sense that the offense is on the verge. I don't know if it'll happen completely by the end of this year, but I think Stone Blanton's right on the verge too. So, hats off to Clayton White. I felt after the Charlotte game, Chris, on the show here, I felt like this defense, the first 3 games, did not necessarily attack like Clayton White's defenses do. I thought the second half of Charlotte, they said, all right, we're not going to sit back here and we're going to go after this team. And then they went after Kentucky, and then they went after A&M. And I think that changes the whole dynamic on defense because you've got such a good defensive line. They're disrupting, and that makes things so much easier for your linebackers and your secondary to sit there, tip passes, errant throws, rush throws, that kind of thing. I know Carolina didn't get any sacks against the Aggies, but man, almost every pass play, they affected the passer. And you talk to coaches, they're like, well, sacks are a little overrated because, you certainly would love to get sacks, but as long as you're affecting the passer, that's kind of the name of the game. And I think Carolina's doing a masterful job of that right now. And they're going to have to, do that against Missouri. And I think, you talk about the big plays this defense has made they've turned things into points. Brady Cook, Missouri's quarterback, is very shaky on the road. This environment Missouri's coming into Saturday is unlike any environment they've played in this year. And people are like, well, they played at Florida and Auburn. How do you say that? Well, those are 2 noon kickoffs. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's watched an Auburn game lately. It's like watching paint dry, man. And they're going to get a new coach, and that'll change. And Auburn historically is difficult. So is Florida. But noon kickoffs at those 2 places in kind of an ugly up and down game, it's not going to be as rocking as Williams-Brice. Kansas State has a great environment. They played out there, second game of the year. It was also an 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff. K-State boat raced them 40-12. I think Missouri's a little bit better now than they were. K-State's an option team. That's a special prep for a defense and stuff like that. But I will say that, you look at the D-line in this matchup Saturday, and if you can force obvious passing downs, I think this group can eat for the 3rd straight week and probably will eat against Vandy again. And, they go to the Swamp and see what happens.
Yeah, and JC, it's as simple as if you win the line of scrimmage, you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
Welcome to the SEC,
Boom.
right?
Yeah.
It's as we've said before, it's cliche because it's true. JC, beamer ball to the freaking moon, right? Special teams yet again shows itself as an area where the Gamecocks are able to win that facet. Outside of just the kickoff return for a touchdown, Kai Kroger is a weapon in the punt game. And, again, I understand it's not sexy. It's not flashy. You and I talked about this morning. But the fact of the matter is this, and not something, it doesn't really bother me because I understand, but I hear folks and I see folks a lot of times saying, South Carolina's getting bailed out by their special teams. Well, they're winning that phase of the game. I mean, it's not like the teams we've played, I feel like, have just been just terrible on special teams, and they're giving us things. Carolina's taking it. And if the opponent's going to allow you to take that facet, right? We talk all the time, JC, if you can win 2 out of 3 facets, great shot to win. Obviously, you win all 3, you win the football game. If you can steal that one, why wouldn't you? So, I mean, I look at it this way. I more so give credit to Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo to the extremely, superior job they've done versus, Carolina's just getting lucky on special teams. And I know you can't make a living banking on kickoff returns and punt returns and block punts because, those things aren't always going to happen, but you got momentum in that facet, in that phase. And I don't think that's something that should be taken lightly or certainly taken for granted.
Absolutely. You made a brilliant point earlier on our show, Chris, that I actually was thinking about last night. I was sitting out at dinner and it dawned on me. This South Carolina team looks a lot like some of those Virginia Tech teams Frank Beamer used to coach, where you'd sit there and, yeah, maybe they'd have a bad game or two early on. Then they'd figure it out. They're blocking punts and rushing the passer and lunch pail defense and, running the ball on offense, effectively and all that. People forget Michael Vick was only there 3 years, and that was special, but they won a lot of games other ways too. So I agree with that. This does look like one of his dad's teams in a lot of ways, and his dad's teams knew how to win. I think that as far as luck goes, you don't get. There's times you get lucky on special teams, man. The other team misses a field goal or whatever. But Pete Limbo, how do I best describe him? The Steve Spurrier of special teams. He's so smart because he'll go in every week. He scouts the other team. And what happens when they do things like the sudden 2-point conversion? What he's looking for is a look. Okay, so they're extra point block team, they're deficient right here because that when you run fakes, what you want to do is catch them because you can't cover everything. Catch them what are they not covering? And so then he checks into it, and there you go, 2-point conversion. Or you check into it, a fake field goal. They check into it, fake punt. Kai Kroger can obviously throw the football, so it's that he sets all that up during the week, and sometimes we don't see it because maybe he doesn't get the look. Maybe they've covered it or something like that. But he sets all those fakes and blocks and things like that up. And that's awesome. And then, you talk about the punt block team and things like that. Shane Beamer is absolutely right. That helps your return because the teams can't set up returns when they're worried about they keep guys back to keep it from getting blocked. And so that's good. I also think this recruiting is important on special teams because you need athletes and what they do with their walk-on program. King Demarion Ford, walk-on kid from Blythewood, 6'2", 210-pound safety. I don't know how your Coastals and Furmans of the world didn't want this kid, because he's actually a really good player. Well, he's a great athlete. So you get in there, you get your athletes involved. Sometimes you get your starters involved. You got Xavier Leggett out there making that. Marshawn Lloyd playing on special teams. You've got a buy-in all the way around it. And the third thing you have to do to have good special teams is you have to work on it. There's been the previous coach here, Will Muschamp, worked on it, and Carolina was not like they are now, but they were pretty solid. Coach Spurrier, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time. They just send the kid. Now, Spurrier always had great kickers and really good punters because the kickers and punters just sit over on that other field and punt all day, right? And he's over there just, we're going to dial up some ball plays, and they didn't work on it. They put walk-ons out there, and that's why, Vanderbilt in 2014 returned 2 kickoffs for a touchdown and things like that. Hey, I love Coach Spurrier, and that's fine. However he wants to work it, but and some coaches don't emphasize it's my point. So to be good at it, you have to emphasize it, practice it. You have to have athletes in depth. And so you got to recruit well. And that means evaluating good walk-ons, getting athletes in your program to where they can go play. And then you have to have buy-in. And it helps to have an evil genius special teams coach. And just to be honest, Pete Limbo is really, really good at coaching it. So all those things have factored in. And I don't think luck has nothing to do with Xavier Leggett getting bottled up on the sideline and refusing to go down, keeping his legs moving like you should. He probably shouldn't have even cut over there, but he did, and then scoring a touchdown. Luck has nothing to do with King Demarion Ford rolling through and blocking a punt or what happened against Georgia State earlier this year. That's effort. That's athleticism. That's coaching. That's scheme. That's teamwork. That's buy-in. None of those things have anything to do with luck. You get Kentucky point the field goal, right? That may be luck, but that's the only lucky part of Carolina's performance in that phase of the game or facet of the game this year.
You want to know how we know this is a Beamer team? Is because we just spent 10 minutes talking about special teams. Not many other shows out there that are talking about special teams the way we are, but that is a good thing for sure.
It gets me fired up. In Pete Limbo's interview yesterday was just amazing. I mean, that guy, what a good individual and what a guy that kind of embraces what Beamer and really the athletics department and Carolina Gamecock Nation, whatever you want to call it, the dream and the goal and the what they want this program to be about, Chris. He embodies that, and I thought that was a special we don't get many special media moments, and the OC's press conference caused a lot of angst and consternation. Poor Clayton White, he can't cause any controversy, but Limbo's was special. I thought it was a special moment media wise yesterday.
Now, JC, you look at this game against Missouri, and I labeled it over the summer as the most important game of this season. Just when I was evaluating the season, I felt like, when I look at most important, I think of like, what's the game you can't lose and have a successful year. And when I looked at all of the streaks, certainly there were many that stood out, but this 3-game losing streak to Mizzou, I think a lot of fans, and myself included, kind of throw Mizzou, or maybe unfairly before the year, but anyways, throw them in the bucket of like Vandy and Kentucky, where it's like, this is a team you need to beat on a year in, year out basis. Obviously joined the league back in 2012, and they actually lead the all-time series against you. And then Eli Drinkwitz hasn't lost to the Gamecocks. That includes a win 2019 against Appalachian State. Again, whether you want to debate going in this game this weekend, is it still the most important? If you keep winning, they keep getting more important, right? For sure. But, just talk about the overall landscape of this matchup and the importance of it. Because I think, for SEC East hierarchy purposes and just ending a really nasty streak, it's pivotal you get this victory. Because, again, even if you lose to Mizzou, hypothetically, I think you're still going to make a bowl game. You could still go 7-5, but it's going to leave a real black mark on this season if you can't find a way at home, homecoming, you're favored, you're finally back in the top 25, to put on one of your best performances of the season and find a way to win this game.
Yeah, it sounds crazy to say. This game could end up being a lot like the Troy game last year. People are going to be like, well, wait a minute, Troy's not in the SEC, but if you're kind of looking for who Missouri kind of can remind you of, Troy was really good on defense last season and wasn't their normal selves on offense. And, hopefully there's a better outcome in that one. And, if somebody picks up a fumble, they won't fumble it at the 1-yard line like Jamar Brown did last year. But I look at it as a must win. And I thought that for a while because, it's one thing when, you have a long losing streak to Texas A&M, right? A&M recruits, whether or not they're living up their potential or not, they recruit well. They recruit in the top 10. They're a big, powerful Texas program. It's ugly. That's fine. Kentucky kind of gets on people's nerves. But if you look at the last 4 games, that streak's kind of starting to turn back. The Gamecocks are 2-2 and probably should have had it in 2021 as well. And Kentucky's going through their best stretch of football since Bear Bryant coached there, right? So you just live with it. It's like when teams used to lose to the Gamecocks. Well, it's their best stretch of football ever, Right. Missouri, it's not been. That's not, these last 2 Missouri teams. And I thought Mizzou overachieved during the pandemic year, winning 5 SEC games. Certainly thought Eli Drinkwitz did a really good job there. I thought last year heading in, everybody's like, well, Missouri's going to contend. And then they kind of fell on their face with a historically bad defense. And then this year he's kind of fixed his defense, but his offense isn't all that good. They're not very good. I mean, it's just not and it's not historically a program. Gary Pinkel did a great job there, winning divisions in the Big 12. And then in something that sticks in Gamecock fans' crawls a bit, won 2 divisions in the SEC. But Gary Pinkel's gone. And historically, Missouri is not a very good football program. They have one of the largest journalism schools and best journalism schools in the country. So a lot of folks, like back when I was in the newspaper business, there's a ton of Missouri grads out there working in sports journalism. It's kind of a running joke with all those guys, right? Mizzou football. So, I think this is one, there's a trophy for this game, right? A second straight trophy game. You play them every year. Carolina really had their number the first 7 meetings, against them. You beat them out there in 2013, beating them pretty badly in their first ever SEC road game in 2012. Muschamp was 3-0, started 3-0 against Missouri. And that's one of the things, unfortunately, that the last 3 or 4 years has kind of slipped away. And Shane's reversed a lot of these things. Shane ended a 2-game losing streak in openers. Now he's on a win streak. Shane, Carolina had lost their win streak against teams from North Carolina. Shane's 2-0 against them. They ended the A&M streak. He ended the streak at Kentucky. And there's just all these things, these little, they seem small, but they all add up to a big picture trajectory, right? That he's turned around, and this is the next one. Last year's loss at Missouri was, I kept going back and forth, and I think I wrote that the worst loss was Clemson just because I thought the defense did not show up for whatever reason in that one. I mean, you hold DJ to 99 passing yards and you get run all over in your own place. And I think we all knew points being scored were going to be hard that night. But that Missouri game was tough too, because Carolina had just come off a surprisingly good blowout of Florida. So you go out there, you ran all over Florida. They have a terrible run defense, and you only put up 250 yards. And, they basically tried to give you the ball game, and you didn't take it. So that's something that I know the coaching staff last year was not happy about. They felt like they let one get away there. And I think that the players will kind of understand that. Like I said, this is the toughest environment Missouri's played in all year, at least since Kansas State. So, I think that, for all those reasons, this game has a bunch of importance. And I hope that, I feel certain the crowd's going to show up. It's going to be loud. And it's going to be a situation where, if Carolina plays well, and even they have to play their best, not their very best, but their best, they'll walk away with a win.
Yeah, like you said, JC, you can debate what was the worst loss of last year.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most inexcusable. I would put it that way.
Yeah,
it just made no sense.
I was not happy, with that one.
Yeah, it made no sense. I'll ask you this, JC, about this game, because I posed this question a little bit earlier to our listeners, and in regards to what, if anything, concerns you, I guess, about Mizzou. And so I'll pose the question to you. What are the things that concern you about the matchup with Mizzou? Or does this game, or does your concern more so stem from the question of, can South Carolina get out of their own way offensively? Because when I talk to people, I don't even know that it's like, oh man, and we know that they got a solid defense, but I don't think people look at Mizzou and they're like intimidated by what the Tigers are bringing to Willie B. The concern more so lies with South Carolina themselves, is the offense going to stub their toe again and make things difficult on us? And it's going to be a situation where, maybe this is a week where you're even in the special teams category, or you play good defense, but you don't get that game-changing pick or fumble recovery or that big play. Will the offense be able to get out of their own way and go win a game if they're asked to? Where do you fall in that? Is there anything Mizzou does, or are you more so concerned with just, can the Gamecocks do what they need to do to get it done?
I'm concerned. They do present some concerns. A guy named Cody Schrader. Okay. These are the types of guys that can help you turn a season around, right? This guy runs. He wasn't – Nathaniel Pete was a Stanford transfer, was a starting running back. Last week they took him out and put this kid in. This kid had 6 carries for 89 yards against Georgia. All right, he's a 5th or 6th year guy from St. Louis, Missouri, balled out at a place called Truman State, a D2 program. Got in the portal. Missouri took him. He is a daggum load. He runs and runs and runs. And Carolina's run defense has been good at, limiting guys like Rodriguez and A-Chain and all that. But my hope is that the coaching staff, Clayton White and his guys, have emphasized this dude can kill you. And if you look at Eli Drinkwitz's offense, he loves to dink and dunk on the perimeter and all that good stuff and run wide. But he also likes to run it right at you. He did that with Tyler Beatty last year. I'm sure that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to line up and run with this kid and keep the Gamecocks offense off the field, wear down the Gamecocks defense, and not get in a situation where the defensive line has to, you have to counteract these guys, in the passing game and depend on Brady Cook. So that guy concerns me. Obviously, a talent like Luther Bolden would concern you. I also think Tyrone Hopper, who, Carolina almost had him out of high school. He went to Florida, got in the portal. Now he's their leading tackler out there. He's a South Carolina native, grew up in Gaffney. He's coming home. Trajan Jeffcoat from Irmo is coming home, the all ACC defensive end they have. They have a lot to prove. there's just some individual pieces there that could be problematic for the Gamecocks that maybe don't get you got to stop A-Chain, or, you got to stop Rodriguez, or, you got to stop Barry and Brown of the last few weeks. So those are the concerns, is because I do think that they have some really nice players, and they haven't gotten over the hump victory-wise, and, they had a loss to Auburn that would make your head explode if it happened to the Gamecocks. Yeah. But, you really need to watch it and make sure you go out there and don't take them lightly, because they do have the weapons to come in and potentially have a better day than they had against Vandy on offense or whatever. And then we all know about their defense. It's pretty good as well. So there's some parts there at Missouri that I like and that would concern me from a Gamecocks perspective.
JC, the Cocks are hot. Cocktober is in full effect. Cocktober is in full effect, indeed. Missouri is a football team that you can look at it one of two ways. They're just on the edge. They're due for a breakout performance. They've been close in their SEC games. You can also look at it as they've found ways to lose games. South Carolina, on the flip side, you could say, they've been cheating death and getting lucky, and special teams and defense has been bailing out. You can also look at it as Carolina's been finding ways to win games. So when the dust settles, how do you see this one playing out? Does Cocktober continue on Saturday afternoon?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that, I think that there's going to probably be some moments early, not necessarily on offense, on defense where you go, oh man, Gamecocks could be in trouble. It kind of reminds me of one of those games where everybody's sort of like a little nervous, about it. I know in 2007, when I was actually in Columbia covering the team from the press box, was thank goodness I don't have to do that anymore, but Mississippi State came to town. And it's funny because Ellis Johnson was the D coordinator there and had the booth right next to me. And boy, if you ever want to hear some colorful language, sit near Ellis during a football game he's calling. But, Spurrier made mention of it. He's like, I watched him on film. This team's really good. I'm scared. He said, I'm scared. He said, I am scared to death. On his radio show. Well, Carolina came out there. There were some scary moments early, but Gamecocks ended up pulling away 38-21. And so to me, it's that kind of game, kind of maybe similar to Missouri in 2016 after the big win over Tennessee. And Carolina's got to get bowl eligible. They come in, they're not very good, but they still have Drew Lock. And that was a back and forth game for a while before Jake Bentley and the Gamecocks won. That kind of matchup. So I'm thinking, and I'll drop my prediction here on your show since I did it last Thursday. I'm just going to start doing that. I'm going to say 21-10 Gamecocks. I don't know that it'll get high scoring. I'm with you. This offense is about to break out. Maybe we'll see a big play in the passing game. Maybe we won't. I'm just going to kind of give credit to the Missouri D and say that they're going to cause some trouble, but it'll be one of those games where sort of their offense will do things early and then sputter, and the Gamecocks eventually will pull away for a lower scoring-ish double-digit win.
Punching bowl eligibility before the month of November. That sounds like a good thing to me. Good idea. JC, before we get you out of here finally on the recruiting side of things, I would imagine that atmosphere at Williams-Brice Stadium was felt by all of those recruits in attendance. Just anything new, what you're hearing from the recruiting side of things for Shane Beamer and company?
Very interesting visitors list last week. 8 of the top 100 prospects in the country per 24/7 Sports composite for the class of 2024 were in Williams-Brice Stadium. And they all had great things to say. Now, 2024 is down the road. I don't know that they'll get all these guys or whatnot, but what you want to do with a younger recruit is plant that seed, keep him coming back, keep his family coming back, show him, hey, wow, this is a big time program here. So that was good. They had a kid in Terrence Love that's committed to Auburn that they're trying to flip out of Atlanta. They have a running back that's committed to Kentucky. They're trying to flip out of Alabama named Riley. That's a bigger back, probably will remind you of Brandon Wilds a little bit, Rashad Amos maybe, and they're trying to flip him. This kid DJ Chester, 4-star offensive lineman from Georgia, just showed up on a whim. Yeah, hey, I want to come to the game, and so that they're trying to get back in it with him. So I thought it was a really interesting list of visitors in terms of, so you got flip candidates, and then you're also laying massive groundwork for, Chris, I don't know if a lot of people realize this. In the state of South Carolina in the 2024 cycle, you have 2 franchise offensive tackles in Cam Pringle and Josiah Thompson. and Carolina is looking good for me. Those are the types of offensive linemen you normally see Alabama and Georgia get, or Texas, or somebody like that. And so they're laying groundwork there. They're in on a lot of kids out of the DC area. Again, Dylan Stewart's a 4-star defensive end for 2024. This class 2023 is in the top 15. Probably will end up, I think, anywhere from 13-ish to 20-ish in the country. And there's 6 in the SEC, which is always good. You always want to be on that top half. But I think 2024, Chris, could be that class you look at and go, wow, these guys, this is a transformational class for a program. And a lot of times it is your third cycle or your fourth cycle where you get that type of group together. I think 2021, they did what they could. You still have some nice players like Juju McDowell and Amarian Brown you brought in, David Spalding. 2022, they love everybody they signed, and you got Nick Warray, DQ Smith out there playing, a lot of defensive backs. This 2023 class obviously is top 15 lineman heavy, but 2024 could be across the board, just a special cycle. And these guys can all recruit. They always have great plans. The kids love the visit. Taylor Edwards does an outstanding job with that, running all that. And, it couldn't have really gone any better from a recruiting aspect Saturday night.
Love to hear it. JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur, Inside the Gamecocks, does a fantastic job. And check me out on Inside the Gamecocks every Thursday, 11:30. We chat, talk South Carolina football. You guys know the drill. JC, always a pleasure, man. Really excited for the weekend. Always excited to chat with you, and I appreciate you bringing the heat as always, my friend. We'll do it again next week.
All right, Chris. Thanks, man. See you guys.
Yeah, man. Take care.